Welcome into a Sunday night edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, live presented by Lance Beal, attorney at law, just like we are every week. Shout out to our guy, Lance Beal. He's an attorney over there in Acadiana, and he can help you out, especially if you're a small business. He really understands some of the concerns, some of the hardships that you go through. If you have any legal needs, get in touch with Lance Beal, attorney at law. You can find him online. We'll hand out our phone number here throughout the broadcast, but Lance Beal bringing you our Sunday night broadcast every week here on the Jordy Culotta Show. Online at lancebeal.com. He's also got a great Facebook site. We will talk to BJ Ojulari, the stand-up defensive end for LSU, who played fantastic last night. LSU's defense as a whole was tremendous. We will talk about some of the defensive numbers for LSU as they really played well last night, did their defense. Saw some things that you hadn't seen from that group and unit. Saw a lot of players that you hadn't seen all season long and really stepped up in a big spot and played a really good game as LSU fell on the road last night. Heartbreaking fashion. It was a heartbreaker, man. 20-14 as they had their opportunities. We'll react to that when the New Orleans Saints blow a late lead today and fall 27-25 to their NFC South rival Atlanta Falcons as Matt Ryan and Cordell Patterson come into the dome.
Back from the dead.
Got it.
I mean, and torch the Saints, especially in the first half and then in the second half. Saints took the lead with 7 minutes in the last 7 minutes of the fourth quarter, and then Atlanta rallied with 10 seconds left as they set up their very talented place kicker for an easy chip shot field goal and a win for Atlanta, 27-25. And then maybe the surprising score of the day, it was centered around Joey B, Jamar Chase, and the crew up there in Cincinnati as they got steamrolled by Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. 41-16 at home. Cincinnati falls to their in-state rival, the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield, first game without Odell Beckham Jr. Numbers not too gaudy, but he throws 2 interceptions, no picks. Jarvis only had 3 grabs for 11 yards, but Cleveland just rolls Cincinnati 41-16. Burrow on the day threw for 282, but 2 bad interceptions. He was also sacked 5 times. He had a 99-yarder go back the other way. Jamar had 6 for 49, but another drop for Jamar here. This is 2 weeks in a row where he's had a bad drop.
2 touchdown drops, too.
Yes. You know that he will get that right, but they are under such a microscope, especially down here. This was a tough loss, and in the NFL, you got to go through these. And you play long enough. At some point on a Sunday, you're gonna get your ass kicked. And Cincinnati got their ass whipped today, 41-16. But outside of that, the NFL, a pretty exciting day. And yesterday in college football was crazy as everybody was really kind of watching Michigan State and Purdue. That was kind of tabbed as the upset to watch in West Lafayette, and Purdue just goes Purdue
unbelievable
on Michigan State, and for the second time beats a top 5 opponent by double digits as they beat Michigan State yesterday 40-29. They beat Iowa earlier this season. Purdue is ranked 17th in the country, but really beat up on Sparty yesterday as they outcoached them, outplayed them. And we will talk about what that does for the status of Mel Tucker coming up here as we talk a little bit more about the coaches and the LSU opening last night. Speaking of coaching in LSU last night, I thought that they had their best game plan that they have had, obviously, up to this point. They displayed that last night. You could tell that they took the bye week and really put some things in, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We saw a lot of blitz packages last night. Even that sellout at the end of the game where they were able to get the ball back was a zero blitz that I don't know if they've done that all season long. I think Orgeron said in the post-game press conference that was the first time that they had done that all year long. I mean, they sold out, sack, fumble, get the ball, Jaquelin Roy falls on it, and they got a chance. I mean,
multiple chances.
If you go back and watch that game, they had 4 chances to win that game within the last 8 minutes. We can sit here and go back and forth, and I think, hindsight's really easy to look back at the status and talk about that 7-minute possession at the 7-minute mark, right there at the 6:45 mark, I believe it was, is when LSU had a chance to kick a field goal. They went for it on 4th down. That's the one that Trey Palmer, it sailed over his head, in which, look, man, if you give Palmer, if you bring that ball down maybe a foot and a half, he's off the ground. He looks like the better athlete out of the three people trying to make the play. Maybe he pulls it down and you're up one, and you're saying what a ballsy call, what a gutsy call. And I can say this, I do understand when you're playing a team like Alabama why you think going into that game that you've got to go for it on fourth down. A lot like Lane Kiffin was thinking a couple of weeks back. It looked like LSU was probably thinking the same thing in preparation of, hey, if we get fourth downs in their territory and we got opportunities to go ahead and convert, go for it. But you also have to go by the feel of the game. You also have to go by how the game is flowing. And, if we're going back and breaking it down on hindsight, LSU's defense was really whipping Alabama's offense. And to think that they wouldn't get another opportunity was probably, it was probably, not right thinking just in the flow of the game. As far as the preparation goes, you're probably thinking, look, maybe in the third and fourth quarter, you're out of it. You're going to have to go for fourth downs. But in that game last night,
you're in it.
You're in it. You get three there. You're up. You're down 20-17. And an opportunity, with two more possessions. They get two more possessions after that, in which, anything can happen. Besh was wide open on the fourth down play.
Yeah.
Both fourth down plays.
And that's where we were trying to go with the football, right? It seemed like that he was the target, certainly on the last fourth down.
Yeah.
I think that old Max might have got dinged up a little bit. He looked a little slow processing some things, and then you saw the clip that came out later on Twitter where it was like, oh, he got popped. Looks like he took one pretty much straight to the chin, and then hits the turf again, and his head bounces off a little bit. So I don't want to say he was concussed, but it seemed like he was a bit slow, in his decision making just a beat late, and he has been that lately. But it seemed like that could have exacerbated some things because he got ragged all around in that game, and kudos to him because he's a tough son of a bitch.
Yeah. Yes, bullets were flying at Max Johnson last night, and I see and hear all of the Max Johnson criticism that has been flowing. Last night, Rohan and I did a little bit of a watch party or a companion type watch with the fourth quarter, and then did a little bit of the post game. And people were just dumping on Max and talking about his play. And look, I get he missed some opportunities last night where he either held the ball too long or he missed open guys. And had an opportunity to make plays, and whether it was throwing off of his back foot or falling backwards, he didn't make plays. But I think we also have to understand that when people are pulling and hoping that Nussmeier's, you still have to drop back behind that same defense, that same offensive line, and you still are going to have to take shots, and you're still going to have to process, and you're still going to have to go through it. And I can tell you on good information that Garrett Nussmeier and his family are really pushing for him to wear the red shirt here in his freshman season. And I agree with it, right? You get a fresh start next season. And from him, for his point of view personally, and while, look, I know that a lot of people don't like to talk about individuals and what suits them best on a team, but that's the way a team works when there's nothing to play for. And that all hope has been lost, and that there's no future in the leadership that currently is running the program. So I think that Garrett Nussmeier, his wishes to the current coaching staff is let me just wear the red shirt, get through this season. And even Orgeron, pointed to that last night, saying that he didn't want to burn up his red shirt on just a couple of plays to get him in the game. And while it would have been interesting to see what Nussmeier could have done last night, it would have been a change of pace in his athleticism and his quick twitch and his, ability to just kind of throw the ball down the field and taking shots. Who knows what would have happened? But, the 2021 edition of LSU football is going to feature Max Johnson as long as he is healthy. And I am not one that is calling for him to be benched, and I don't think that he deserves as much criticism as he's getting. Could he play better? He could obviously play better. I mean, if you look at some of the shots that he missed, he had some opportunities last night. I mean, there were some golden opportunities for him to make a play, and he just missed them. And You know, I mean, he's a sophomore. He's on the road. And he's in a big spot. And I'm not making excuses for him. But, you know, I do understand that in the evolution of a quarterback, those moments are going to happen, in which he's going to look back at game film and see prime opportunities for him to make plays in which he didn't make the play, and you got to get better this week and make the play either next week at Arkansas or as you evolve in the quarterback and mature at that position, those plays have to be made. And, you know, that's a big spot on the road as a second-year guy on your ninth start, 10th start of his career, and he just missed the plays. He missed them. And, you know, I mean, it sucks because he had opportunities. And Besh was open on the fourth down. He could have stepped into the throw, you know, that he missed on the goal line for Palmer. But I thought that he made some good plays too. You know, I mean, I thought that he made some really good throws. I thought he stepped up. He hit Jeray Jenkins in the middle of the field on a big third down that I thought was a real good SEC type throw. But, you know, I mean, I think what I'm trying to say is, and I know I'm using a lot of words, but what I'm trying to say is that Max Johnson's the guy. And I think outside of Nussmeier playing one more game, you know, in which you can preserve that red shirt, I don't think you're going to see him in a big spot, especially like a spot like last night.
He's played
but I do think when you open this competition up with Garrett Nussmeier with a year of college experience and bring in, you know, potentially a 5-star guy and a number 1 type quarterback status in the country and a guy like Walker Howard, you know, I mean, Max Johnson's got to significantly improve to hold those guys off. He's got to get better, or that competition is going to be really, really tight for the incumbent. And, you know, I think he knows that. I mean, but as far as the 2021 edition goes of LSU football, Johnson's the guy.
The drop-off has been noticeable, though, since his, I guess, game at Kentucky. I mean, I'll look at the stats real quick. Give me 1 second. It is, okay, Kentucky, 22 of 38, 261 with a touchdown. Since then, Florida win, obviously we know what happened with Ty Davis-Price. Right. So that one you get a pass, 14 for 24, 133, 3 touchdown passes. So that was obviously the game plan going. We're going to run the ball and then use play action whenever we have a second to score. So I'm cool there. Ole Miss, 13 of 21, 146 with a pick. Last night, 16 of 32, 160, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I'm just saying the numbers are bearing out to where there's a reason that people are asking questions. It's not just because of they want to see the next guy. They're looking for a little bit of performance from the quarterback end because, especially last night, if you get a somewhat competent game from him, you win that football game.
Yeah, and I don't think it's unfair to criticize him.
No, this is the first time he's been criticized.
Yeah, I don't think it's unfair to openly ask questions about his production and what is going on because it has become consistent in the plays that he's missing. Right, and you would hope that by now he was really routinely making those plays rather than being just off a click or two. Because, I mean, if you go back and watch the Trey Palmer, I mean, he's a foot and a half off.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even that last possession where I don't understand, and I'm not, you know, look, we can go back, but, like, why would you roll a left-handed quarterback to his right side in a spot like that at the end where he sees Besh, and Besh is open to the outside, and Rohan was talking a little bit about it last night where he's got to learn to throw guys open where Besh was guarded, but if you throw it to him out here, he's open. And if you just lead him into the green area, into the open area, who knows? The first guy is probably not going to tackle Besh. I mean, he has shown that he is hell with the ball in his every time he touches it, something good happens. Every time Jack Besh touches the football, they either get a first down, a touchdown, a big momentum play. I love how he gets. I mean, he is a shot of electricity into the arm. But I digress in saying that in that spot, like, why roll him left, or excuse me, to his right, where he's kind of, he's kind of, he's all cattywampus, where he can't turn his body and he wants to get to his strong side, and I mean he misses Besh by a foot. And if he puts it there, Besh could still be running. You know, I mean, like even on the crosser to Besh at the end of the game where you're falling back, and it's like, you know, the ball sails over his head because his release point is falling back and he almost jumps to throw it. And as he lets it go, I mean, he's 6'5".
Yeah.
I mean, his release point when he's at his highest point is probably about 6'8", 6'9". And then he jumps off the ground a lot of times to throw it. So he's probably throwing at almost 7 feet off the ground. And a lot of those passes that were kind of, you know, I mean, over Palmer's head, over Besh's head. I mean, you read Besh's lips when he got back to the sideline. Said it's effing wide open. He was. You know, so I get and understand the criticism. And I understand that it's going to be some interesting competition when it's open, you know, come under a new head coach, new set of eyeballs, Garrett Nussmeier, a year older and a year into a college system.
With a clearly different skill set.
And then you bring in the number one quarterback in the country, Walker Howard, who just lit up the stat sheet on Friday night.
With a broken leg?
Yeah, I mean,
how did he come back so quickly?
5 weeks.
I don't know.
That's crazy.
It is. But also, yeah, I mean, that was a quarterback duel on Friday night between, I believe it was Kalen Harris.
Yeah, we figured it out last night.
Yes. And
it was their third string quarterback for that played. He returned kicks, returned punts, and what just happened? Return kick, return punts, and then it's their third string quarterback. He threw for 500 yards, and it was
he threw for 600.
600 yards.
Yeah. He threw for 607 touchdowns and rushed for over 102 more touchdowns, and also had 110 yards in return. In kickoff and punt return.
It's the epitome of high school football.
It is.
But when you get back to, obviously, as you said, you have good information about Nussmeier being able to redshirt for this year. Do you think that is a redshirt to be able to explore his options outside of LSU, or is that strictly, I want to stay at LSU and compete and be able to
No, I don't think he's
going
anywhere. I don't think he's transferring. I don't think that he's I think he sees a great opportunity to play here.
I agree.
I mean, I really do. And there's a lot of let's see what happens. And we'll ask BJ about it. You know, just kind of what the feel is. But this is breaking news right now. Bruce Feldman is reporting out of Gainesville. This is a source close to Feldman saying that defensive coordinator Todd Grantham and offensive line coach John Hevesy have been let go by Dan Mullen at the University of Florida. Things are starting to implode in Gainesville. You could see it last night. Speaking of bad losses, we said Michigan State obviously with a bad loss in West Lafayette versus Purdue. Maybe the worst loss of the weekend was South Carolina getting drumming Florida last night at home, 40-17,
start to finish.
They also did it with a third string quarterback. South Carolina did. First start for their quarterback, Jason Brown, who
Jason Brown.
First and second string guys go down. Jason Brown is the third string guy, who's I believe has played a little wide receiver. I think they moved his spots. Comes in, throws for 175 yards.
Hey.
He rushes, with the sack yardage, he was pushed back a little bit, but comes in there, and Florida falls at South Carolina 40-17, which is amazing. And now here's the deal. There is a lot of now. Scott Strickland is the athletics director over at Florida. He's a Mississippi State graduate and was at Mississippi State and was there when Billy Napier was really hot on the minds of a lot of people in Starkville, and Napier was really number one on that list. Things are looking bad for Dan Mullen. It looks like it's not a matter of if, it's when he's going to lose his job in Gainesville. This has something to do with LSU. LSU will now have to react, or at least play a little bit of defense to what Florida's going to do here. They are very curious about what's going to happen in Gainesville, because it feels like, that the athletic director is telling Dan Mullen, you either got to fire these guys or you're going to lose your job, which usually means when there's more football left to play, it's going to get bad enough where they're going to say, hey, man, new defensive coordinator or not, get him out of here. You know what I mean? They want new blood. They want new life.
He's starting to get the Ed Orgeron treatment, whatever.
Yeah.
Did you see them? He's getting questioned about not greeting the band off the bus
Yeah.
at an away game, so
Right.
they're nitpicking and trying to find
and
things.
he's messing with them.
Yes,
he
yeah.
messed with the media availability last week. He shut down players. He shut down coaches. And the reason why he did that is because people were really kind of bombarding them about his comments about recruiting. You know, what he said, which is not going to play well when it looks like you don't have the players. You know, so
in a team like Florida.
Yeah, right. In a place like Florida.
Right.
Remember, Lance Beal, attorney at law, brings you our Sunday night conversations here and brings you our Sunday night coverage. We will talk to BJ Ojulari here when we come back. When we come back, we'll have Ojulari compliments of the law offices of Lance Beal, who Sunday night brings you this coverage here on the Jordy Culotta Show. Gearing up for spring and summer down here in South Louisiana, and you want to keep your lawn maintained during these sunny seasons, get in touch with our friend Blake Abear over at Abear's Lawn Maintenance, where he says, you grow it, I mow it. 225-485-8022. 225-485-8022 is where you can find Abear's Lawn and Maintenance, the official lawn and maintenance company of the undisclosed location. Papa Earl's, the fine spice, originating right down here in South Louisiana by our guy Mark Pop Norman. Developed it back in 2018 and won Amazon's Newcomer of the Year in 2019. They pride themselves in having 30% less salt and sodium than the leading brands at the same price point. You can find them locally. Look for Papa Earl's at Rouse's, Calandro's, Mathern's, High Neighbor, and more. True Blue Water. True hydration at its finest. Right now, you're only a few minutes away from getting your 5-gallon water delivered to you, just like we are over here at the UDL. All you got to do is log on to truebluewater.com. That's TRU, bluewater.com. The website's fantastic over at truebluewater.com. You can get your service and find out how quick it is. You can schedule a delivery, even hop on the billing system right there at truebluewater.com. TRU, bluewater.com. Gearing up for spring and summer down here in South Louisiana, and you want to keep your lawn. All right, welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Ghost Chevrolet every Sunday night, brought to you by Lance Beal, attorney at law down there in Acadiana in the Lafayette area. We're going to link up with BJ Ojulari here in a couple of minutes. We'll talk some coaches in their stock after yesterday as Matthew Stafford throws another pick six here on Sunday night. Tennessee playing without Derrick Henry. They signed Adrian Peterson here. Peterson, that was a beautiful play. Who made that play? Who is that?
Kevin Byard.
Yeah.
I mean, he broke on that thing, caught it with his
Yeah,
fingertips.
he read it all day.
Broke on it and scored. And this is back-to-back possessions that Stafford's now thrown a pick six as they trail here on Sunday Night Football. 14-3 to the Tennessee Titans, who've got two defensive scores here in the first half to get those 14 points. And we'll talk some coaching stock here after yesterday's coverage, and obviously everybody was looking at Mel Tucker, and they lose yesterday at Purdue 40-29. And as we said, this was Purdue's second double-digit win against a top 5 opponent of this year. They beat Iowa earlier this year. But it was a great win for Jeff Brom and his program versus Mel Tucker and Michigan State. Obviously, Mel Tucker's name has been very popular within the circles of LSU and what's going on down here right now. And I don't know necessarily what yesterday did to the status of Mel Tucker, but I can't imagine that, if we're judging off of some of the criteria that we have talked about on this platform before. I mean, as good and as well coached and as prepared as Michigan State looked last week versus Michigan, it was almost the opposite versus Purdue yesterday. I thought they were outcoached. I thought they were outplayed. That was a.
It seems like they only have one thing to do on offense, and that's Kenneth Walker.
They're very one-dimensional.
Because even when they were down late, they still ran the ball. That's all that they really could turn to. And he did break off a couple chunk plays, but it seems like their offensive identity is Kenneth Walker, and it's to play good defense. It's an old school mentality in terms of how they want to play a football game. It's to rely on defense to be able to run the football. And if you're an LSU fan, how far in the past do you want to go?
Right.
Because there's been this offensive awakening in the SEC, and it seems like that may be the train to hop on. But when you look at Georgia, and if you can get the defense right, there's obviously that's a viable option. But how often can you get the team or your defense on that good?
Yeah.
It's just such a everything has to be right if you're going to play that style of football.
Because you risk losing games like the one to Purdue. I mean, Purdue's quarterback threw the ball 54 times, completed 40 of them for 536 yards. I mean, you run the risk.
Mississippi State game.
Yeah, you run the risk of not being able to keep up.
Yeah. And Chuck B brings up a good point, and I agree with him. Pretending Woodward is going to make a hire based on a singular game week by week is asinine, in my opinion.
Oh, we're not doing that.
He's had his guy, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't think that Woodward is going week by week and looking at outcomes and looking at what the status and how the pecking order is going to change for the job status. I think Woodward has got his guy. I think there's probably even a chance behind the scenes that there could be a contract in place that they just have an announcement date on this thing. I'm just saying that, as we've said in weeks past, anybody that tells you that they do know is lying to you. They don't know, because Woodward is moving and working in privacy on this thing and working in silence. But there are some names that are probably in the mix, right? And speaking to some of the candidates involved in this, that at least we've known has been made contact with. That obviously the wheels are in motion and things are happening behind the scenes, but nobody really knows anything. Nobody's been confirmed and said, hey, look, we want you to report this, because that's just not how Woodward operates. And I agree with you, Chuck B. He also doesn't operate looking week to week, wondering what the status is going to be for this job based on the outcomes of, what Michigan State did yesterday. What Michigan State did yesterday means nothing to the future of the LSU football job. Just like, what Baylor did yesterday in falling to TCU on the road in a classic game doesn't have any bearing on whether or not Dave Aranda is going to get the job at LSU. All of that work, all of that interest, all of what they are looking for has already been done. Does the criteria meet or not? And, there's a couple of people that meet the criteria that we're just looking at and evaluating week to week. And it seems like Mel Tucker's name would be obviously a popular choice to look at the success that he's had in stops at Colorado, now Michigan State, the coaching tree in which he comes from. Obviously, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart hired him immediately when he was hired at Georgia and brought him in on that staff on his early Georgia days and really put him out as a recruiter. He understands the SEC. He understands the environment, the landscape, the geography of this part of the country, and really can communicate within the living room. But if you saw his team play yesterday, it was a little underwhelming compared to last week. Jimbo Fisher's name continues to come up within circles. We talked to Rohan about this, and Ro obviously is very tight with Jimbo, as Jimbo was the offensive coordinator while Ro was here at LSU and was the quarterback there. And And Roe's not the only one that has good relationships with Jimbo and his family that are still tied to the Baton Rouge area. And everybody that you speak with kind of has the same confidence that Roe has, that the wheels are in motion with Jimbo. Like, this is the guy. That's the guy. That's the one that Woodward wants. That's the one that he trusts. That's the one that he's safe in working with. And that's the deal that it almost seems like they've had in place since they struck the deal back in College Station, that they knew one day Woodward would be back at LSU, and sooner rather than later, the football job was going to be open. And Jimbo has always loved the place and said, look, I'll go back. I'm not working for Oliva. If you get the gig, let's talk. And one other thing that is very much at play here, and I've had this confirmed to me now a couple of times, where it feels like, you know, we can go, and anybody that's paying attention to it, I think, has speculated and been curious to and wondered, how are they paying all these people? Are they spending all this money? And on good return, on good information, Scott Woodward started building this war chest a couple of years ago. And I think the, kind of behind the scenes type conversations was that Woodward was going to get this job probably a year before he ultimately agreed to it. And when they had that initial conversation of, hey, if it's open, would you be interested? And what would you need? And the first on Woodward's checklist was, you got to get me a war chest. And I'm talking about an SEC war chest, $100 million type war chest. And you need to start building it right now. So when I get there and I have to make these decisions and bring these people in, that money's not an issue. And I don't think that money's an issue. I mean, I know that money's not an issue. And I know that money's not an issue because of what they're paying Kim Mulkey and what they're paying out to get rid of these people.
To leave.
Yeah.
Right? Here's BJ. Let me take a 30-second break. We'll be right back with BJ Ojulari. All right, welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show. LSU, Alabama last night. The topic of conversation here is the Tigers nearly upset Alabama in Tuscaloosa, had their chances. 2014, they fall. The story of the game for LSU was their defense. Defense played different from start of the game all the way through the end of that game. They had their chances and gave LSU really the opportunities to win that game. When they needed a play, when they had to make a play, the LSU defense stepped up and made it. And a lot of the times when you looked up, number 8, BJ Ojulari, was in and around the football as he had a fantastic game last night. I thought you made a ton of money last night. NFL scouts were there. They were talking about a lot of the general managers that were in attendance of last night's game and how many people that were there from the NFL. You got to be happy with your performance individually. I know it's not what you wanted from a team aspect, but coming home 2014 on the wrong end of Baton Rouge today, how does it feel?
I'm very proud of our defense and how we stepped up facing adversity, especially coming into a number 2 Alabama team, being doubted, being a 20 or 30 point underdog. So I definitely think we proved something to the SEC and earned a lot of people's respect last night.
What do you think that was? You cats look motivated, BJ. I mean, there was a lot of hunger and motivation. You could see Jay Ward was waiting for that moment. You could see people like Darren Evans were waiting for that moment. I mean, people that were on that stage for the first time, you could tell there was some bounce in that group. What could you get the feeling of that in preparation last week?
Yes, sir. Especially with 2 weeks preparation, putting in the new pressures, putting in the new, the new schemes. If you saw, I was dropping a little bit.
Yep.
Last night, just doing different things. Especially, playing Alabama. Everybody's watching. Everybody want to have a great game against Bama. DeMo Clark, I think he's the best linebacker in college football. We rally behind him. He's a great linebacker. He does a great job. And especially D-line, Neil Farrell, Glenn Logan, having a great game, just leading us and keeping the pressure on Alabama the whole game. We've seen people play Bama, but the problem is they don't finish the game. So our motives was just to finish the game, play a whole full quarters against Alabama.
You had those cats nervous, man. You could see it in their eyes. Y'all were kicking their ass for 3.5 quarters. I mean, when Jay Ward came up and hit Bryce Young when he scrambled last night, you could see kind of in the sidelines and even on the face of the people out there that like, whoa, this is a heavyweight punch that we did not expect. Could you feel that in that game? Did you feel like you were beating their ass as much as it looked like?
Yes, sir. Most definitely. The atmosphere in the crowd definitely changed when going into fourth quarter, knowing that we're only down a touchdown, offense having possession of the ball. The crowd couldn't really say much. And especially 3 and outs back to back, the atmosphere definitely changed. We had a lot of momentum on the defense, and it was a very great night.
Take me to that moment at the end of the game where you guys sell out, blitz everybody, get the sack, fumble. The ball is bouncing. It looks like you were about to. I thought for sure we were screaming at the TV. I said, BJ's got it. He's the one coming up. It looked like Jaquelin Roy actually got the stat of the fumble, but you guys were right there on top of. That's another blitz you haven't run all season long, right?
Yes, sir. It was a new blitz. Sent me and Cam off the edge. Cam came up big with the sack fumble. I overran the ball a little bit, but I tried to fall back on it. But I got to give all the props to J-Roy. He's the one that was in there just fighting and clawing at the ball and got that thing out. And at that moment, all I can think is just score this touchdown, kick the field goal, and upset Alabama. That was the whole plan. I thought that was how it was going to go down, but unfortunately it didn't.
Take me to the weeks of preparation. It looked like the bye week was very beneficial for y'all. What was the bye week like?
The bye was a lot of mental preparation, a lot of unit teach period, a lot of install, just going over our schemes and mental errors that we made Ole Miss week, fixing us, and getting that rest to get ready for Bama week.
Did I read somewhere that Coach Ojulari canceled all of the team meetings on Friday night and took you guys to the movie just to kind of change it up? And if so, what did that do for you guys?
Yes, sir. He did cancel the Friday night meetings after travel and just took us to see a movie. And I think it was really good change up. Just to get away from football after just two straight weeks of preparation. So it was a great change up. And then we came on Saturday and we still performed. So I didn't think I don't think it benefited us in a way.
What movie, bro?
To be honest, I don't remember what movie it is. I just know it was a scary movie. The leadership had picked the movie.
My man was focused.
Yes, sir.
Does his message still hit? It looked like he was really dialed in last night. It looked like he was very much kind of emotionally into the game. Was his message obviously still hitting with you guys the way that it did, a couple of weeks back?
Who?
Ojulari, your head coach.
Oh yes, sir. Coach O, he's gonna fight for us to the end. So we're gonna fight for him to the end, and it's been like that since I got here. So none of us are gonna give up on him. We the goal is to win out, and we can definitely win out after the performance we just displayed last night.
100%. Can you guys keep up that emotion? Can you keep the level of intensity that people saw yesterday into this week and the last 3 weeks of the season?
Yes, sir. Most definitely we can. you know, a lot of people have their futures to think of. So they're not just playing for themselves. They're playing for the team. They're playing for their futures, and they're still playing for Coach O.
What's the schedule like this week, BJ?
Same thing. Sunday, get your treatment in. Watch some film. Monday, we're gonna dive into our corrections from Alabama, and then a little bit of install from Arkansas, and start from there. Same practice schedule. Come back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and get ready for Arkansas on Friday, and just come out like we did last week, and we're gonna for sure be victorious.
Keep balling, Nate. You look good last night, bro. Have a great week of preparation. We'll talk to you next Sunday.
All right, yes, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, man. There's BJ Ojulari checking in from LSU football tonight. As I tell you what, man, he looked really good last night. Made some money, I thought. For as many as the NFL scouts were in attendance at Bryant-Denny last night, LSU's defensive end, BJ Ojulari, I thought really stood out last night for LSU on defense.
If you're LSU football, you got to think they go back to that same defense where they're just attacking cover zero, man coverage, and then if they get you behind the sticks, they just did they basically played at the sticks and just said, don't let them get past this line. Like, I would imagine that is something that it may not have to be that severe where they're blitzing every play, but to have that in the arsenal kind of makes you think a little bit differently on the defense, I would imagine.
I really do. I mean, when you look at the potential of, this job and you look at the Alabama game, it's got to have people like Napier, Fisher, Tucker, people who are ever in the mix, Lincoln Riley, very much just kind of like, and I think that's, people are asking me, and Lincoln Riley to me makes a lot of sense from Scott Woodward's standpoint, because it feels like a Woodward type move. That feels like a Woodward type hire. It would surprise me if he did, just from the Lincoln Riley standpoint, stepped out of the Saban coaching tree. But if he was to go rogue off that tree, I think that Riley would make a ton of sense just from who Scott Woodward is, right? You're asking me who the best candidate is for the LSU job. Hell, I think that everybody that is a qualified football coach is a candidate for the LSU job from the standpoint of, what the job entails, right? Like, you understand what you're getting. It is a college football monster. So I think that there's a lot of people out there that may, but from Scott Woodward's standpoint, who makes the most sense? And, as much as I wanted to, at the beginning of this process, I, had said, go get Lane Kiffin. That doesn't make a lot of sense from Scott Woodward's standpoint, does it? I mean, if we're all kind of seeing Scott Woodward at work and kind of understanding kind of his personality, who he is on the job, I mean, Lane Kiffin doesn't make the most sense as a match right there. Lincoln Riley, to me, feels like a Woodward guy, kind of off the radar. Nobody really is talking about him. He's a really splash name. If you were able to pull him from Oklahoma, that would be a real wow factor. That would be a kind of like that would shake up college football. That'd be headline news in the sports world for a couple of days, right? In the way that today's news cycle works. And you also make an opponent weaker. You make somebody that's coming into your conference, you take one of their bullets away from their gun. And if you're asking me, the off the board guy, my top three still are Billy Napier, just if I'm making the hire. Billy Napier, Dave Aranda, which I thought his stock went up, even continue yesterday, even in a loss.
Showed a little emotion.
Really, a lot of emotion.
Fired up.
A lot of emotion yesterday. And then, kind of the Mel Tucker, Jimbo Fisher. Those four names to me are the ones that are my guys, right? Like, those are the ones that I would think that the next coach is probably coming off of, out of those four names. If you want one off the board, that if they hired him, I would be like, oh, that's Woodward. It would be Lincoln Riley. And I don't know, who knows who's a smokescreen, who's for real. I do know that Riley's name has been, it's in there. It's in the hopper, whether it's his agent looking for a little bit more cash, whether it's somebody looking for some attention or whether it's real, I don't know. But Lincoln Riley's name is in there. And that's the one, kind of off the board that would, if, it was announced that Lincoln Riley was the head coach, I'd say, you know what, that's Scott Woodward right there, baby. And he's probably had this deal done since early November.
And it's the one that doesn't seem to be talked about enough.
Exactly. And that's why it also makes a ton of sense.
Because
it's kind of living under the surface. Right? Jimbo Fisher is very surface level talk of LSU football.
Yeah.
Mel Tucker is very surface level talk of LSU football. Billy Napier kind of feels under the surface talk of LSU football. But, the above surface guys, Tucker, Fisher, those are the ones that we keep going back to. The one under the surface that you hear murmurs about but wonder, is this legit? Is Lincoln Riley more than anybody? I think there's people pushing for Napier under the surface, a little bit harder than others. I think that Billy Napier's camp is really doing some work kind of behind the scenes of making sure his name does not fall out of. Because, look, man, this Florida job is going to have a direct line and because Scott Strickland's got to work just as quickly as Scott Woodward does. Those recruiting comments hurt Dan Mullen. They hurt the University of Florida. Dan Mullen was shutting down media availability for players and coaches last week because he saw that they were going to get asked about it and get bombarded about it. And when he tells his media relations people that he's shutting that down, his media relations people have to go to the athletics director and say, this is why we're not doing media. And Scott Strickland's going to say, well, tell Dan that he needs to send his guys out there and then he needs to recruit so they don't have to answer those questions.
Are we recruiting?
So it's not good in Gainesville. It looks like it's not if, it's when Dan Mullen kind of burns that bridge and kind of is forced out. And that's going to have an effect on the LSU job. And I think more directly because of Billy Napier.
That's what I was going to ask. Because if you look at LSU and you talk about the Scott Woodward effect, I don't think Florida can pull the same strings that LSU can in terms of go get a Lincoln Riley or go get a Dave Aranda. Like, I don't think that Florida fish is that big. It's big enough to fry. But a Billy Napier, somebody like that, where it seems like they want to start fresh almost and get rid of kind of pieces around the SEC. And like, look, let's just clear the slate, bring in somebody that maybe isn't in the SEC, but somebody that probably knows how to do it. And if you're Florida, they're okay with a little bit of a rebuilding phase. It seems like they just want to get rid of Mullen. Yeah. Kind of the same way that it felt with Ojulari, where it's like, just get him out of here because this clearly isn't working. So I think that Napier makes more sense for Florida, but I don't think they could swing in the same park as a Jimbo Fisher or a Lincoln Riley like LSU can.
No, I don't think
that's the one name.
I think Jimbo is the only job that he's listening to in the country is LSU, and it's only because of Scott Woodward.
Exactly.
And I think that's why a lot of people are listening to LSU. I still think that people, some of the young, hungry coaches that are in, I think Dave Aranda would listen to Florida.
Yeah.
You think so?
Hell yeah. Get back in the SEC. There's only 14 of those jobs in the world, 16 now. You know what I mean? There's only 16 on the planet, and they pay more than anybody. You've got, an unbeatable budget. You've got incredible resources. You've got a recruiting area that's fantastic, and you can't win the national championship at Baylor. He knows that. You can't really be a national championship contender at Baylor. It's fun to put yourself on the map, put your name on the map, make a name for yourself. But then
take a job like
you got to use that as a stepping stone to get me to a place where I can win it. And you can win it at Florida. You can win it at Florida much easier than you can at Baylor.
Yep. Right, but you could also get fired much easier at Florida.
Yeah, but they know that, man. That's the grind. Okay. Those guys, that echelon level of coaching, they know that's what comes with it, and they want all that smoke. They want all that pressure. They want all of that money. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, really more than anything. I mean, they want potentially. I mean, they look at Ed Ogeron making $8.5 million a year and say to themselves, are you kidding me?
They'll pay you that to do
that?
that?
Are you kidding me? That they're paying this guy he's the second highest paid coach in college football? That's all I got to do is get to that job? I mean, Dave Aranda would walk from Waco to Gainesville. I'm telling you, because he sees, the opportunity to win, and it's generational money for his family.
And Dan Mullen would probably end up in Waco and crush it.
I think Dan Mullen's probably going to be on an NFL staff next year.
He seems NFL.
Yeah.
I think that's what got this moving was last year. His name popped up in a couple of NFL jobs, and he kind of started beating his chest around campus and around the boosters, almost to the fact of, I'm not going to be here. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be in the NFL. And some of those jobs fell through, and people were like, F you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, forget you, bro. So,
what's his buyout? Do you know? I'm trying to find it. Because I guess it doesn't matter, when you talk about LSU and you talk about Florida and you talk about these money programs, they don't really concern themselves. That's not a factor anymore.
No.
That seemed like it was only a factor at LSU for some reason, like long ago, when they're like, oh, we might quit playing football. It's like, no, you're not. But that got all the buyout talk and like talking about other people's money and how LSU, can they afford him? It's very clear LSU can afford whoever they want because they can afford to fire whoever they want. So I don't think I guess that shouldn't be a sticking point anymore in terms of like looking at buyouts and what people are owed when you talk about a Lincoln Riley or like Dan Mullen having to leave Florida. Like, I guess that's just persona non grata at this point.
I mean, it's just it's the way of college football now, man. It's the SEC TV money that has brought this conference. I mean, it's monopoly money. I mean, it really is. The way that you spend it and the way that you have access to. I mean, it's like, they're paying $17 million for people to go away. I mean, LSU's $23 million in the hole to people that they're asking not to work.
Yeah, Dan Mullen's is 12.
Buyout?
Yeah, so that's nothing. That's
chump change.
Yeah, that's one stroke of a check.
Absolutely, and you don't even have to touch the chest.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, you can go to somebody privately and say, hey, man, we need to go get this guy out of here because we need to bring this guy in. How much do you need? We need 12. I'll give you 8. Go get 4 from him.
How much do you hate Dan?
You know what I mean?
$12 million worth? Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Grantham's out. Defensive coordinator and offensive line coach are out in Gainesville. It seems like it's only a matter of time before Mullen gets swept away in the coaching carousel, and he gets an opening there in Gainesville. So we'll wait and see, man. It's going to be a wild ride to see what happens here. LSU plays Arkansas this week. Ojulari will speak to the media tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see what he says here. I think that will be a challenge to keep this emotion and keep this intensity for the next couple of weeks because LSU just loaded up all the big guns and shot everything they had in Tuscaloosa with a very undermanned roster and a very undermanned team. Can they keep those emotions as high as they were on Saturday night and carry them over to Tiger Stadium this week versus Arkansas, who's coming off a very emotional win versus Mississippi State? A couple of lead changes late in that game as Tennessee is just harassing Matt Stafford. A sack on Stafford here as they're up 21-3. Jeffrey Simmons, the former Mississippi State standout.
He's been killing them all night.
That's his third sack.
That's his third sack of the night. As he just came untouched. I mean, he's just one-on-one with the center here, and they just can't. I mean,
they didn't even touch him.
He couldn't get his hands on him. He's just too quick for him.
All right, let's get it out of our hands. Woof.
Yeah, put it in Tim's hands. I like that.
So, I don't know, man. This coaching thing, I would see, a couple of weeks here.
With the Florida job potentially coming open, like just to recap, Napier's the only name that you would absolutely be worried about in terms of LSU.
USC probably makes more sense to Dave Aranda than anything else. That would be the other opening that Aranda would make more sense at than any other than any other place. I mean, he's a West Coast guy. He's a California guy. He's got he's chill. He's that makes more sense than anything. But I think that he would definitely listen to Florida.
Absolutely.
I know Lane's kind of out for LSU, but do you think Florida would make a play at Kiffin?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly, and I think that Lane would probably listen and go there.
You want to be in the East as opposed to the West.
Yes, for sure. But the national champ's going to be in the East this year. Georgia looks just unbeatable. I mean, if that's Alabama's good, people were asking me today, was LSU that good, or is Bama that?
They sleptwalk through that thing.
They definitely did sleepwalk through it, and they had some guys out. They had some key guys out for that one.
You can't play that game with LSU. Jesus.
No, none at all. I think that, look, man, it's kind of like the pros. You know what I mean? Like Jacksonville today beat Buffalo. You know what I mean? It was a terrible game, but I mean, any Sunday that you strap it up in the NFL, those guys are pros too. You know what I mean? Like, you give an SEC Western Division roster like LSU, depleted or not, those guys were
all good,
hungry, motivated, and at one point were the superstars on their team. And now you give a guy like Cam Lewis an opportunity that's 6 years into this thing. I mean, how Cam Lewis, 24 years old, 23. I mean, legit. I'm asking a legit question. He's got to be 23.
Let's see.
You know what I mean? Flying around. I mean, that's how Alabama would beat you in years past. Was that they had 21, 22, 23-year-olds blocking and putting their hands on, 18, 19-year-olds, where it's just different. And I mean, you get those guys. I mean, Dwight McLaughlin played over his skis last night. He looked a little banged up. To stay in that game, stay in that game and make plays the way he was. I mean, that was, that was, where the hell has Mike Jones been?
Oh my!
Like, how does that cat? That's what he could do. That's what he can do.
He had been playing,
and y'all been struggling to stop all, and that's how 19 can move. Like, are you kidding me? That is just, it is maddening to see some of that. But, hungry, motivated, they want their chance. They knew that there's NFL scouts watching that. They know that there's general managers in the suites watching that. They know that there's, for as much as that's down in the interest, publicly, I guarantee, nationally, people are watching that game just because of the brands. Just because how good it looks on TV.
And then it was close. And it's like, well, I'll stay tuned. And it was a little, like, it wasn't probably the best football game you could ever watch, but as soon as it was 7-0 LSU, I'd imagine a million eyeballs went to it. Like, shit, does LSU have a chance in this thing? And then you watch them play, like, how have they been so bad all year? Because what do you mean you're putting in new packages for 1 week? Like, is that what they need? Just time? They just needed a bye week to be able to change their entire.
We need 2 weeks of preparation.
I mean, it's got to be so frustrating. Like, I don't know whose feet this falls on, because obviously Orgeron it seems like he's more hands off than ever. And I don't know if they're letting them scheme more, because that defense looked like anything. We haven't seen that LSU play that way, and I don't know how long.
Fresh air.
Yeah, like, it was certainly 2 years, but they never brought blitzes like that. And then I read Bertie Miller's piece today, and they said that they ran primarily 4-3, which is obviously something Orgeron's been pushing for. And they just said match up with them, and let's play football and run 4-3 and get pressure. And that seemed to be that might be the blueprint for whoever plays Alabama that Georgia could have to follow and be like, look, if you get pressure on Bryce Young, you can muck this game up. And then Georgia obviously is better than LSU, and they might have the horses to be able to take that thing over the top.
It doesn't matter who plays quarterback for Georgia.
Their defense doesn't need to.
Their defense.
Ride the accountant.
99.
Ride the accountant.
Stupid. I mean,
the accountant.
Stetson Bennett.
The fourth.
Yeah, he feels like he feels like a hedge fund operator.
He was a check away from tearing up flag football defenses. Let Stetson play.
Intramural All-Star.
Just a cigarette in.
All right, we'll be back with you tomorrow morning. We appreciate you joining us here on this Sunday night edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, brought to you by Lance Beal, attorney at law. Brand new website for Lance, and the law office is over there. Check him out online at lawofficeoflancebeal.com. Lawofficeoflancebeal.com is where you can find him. Your choice for reliable representation, whether it's personal injury, small business, construction law, family law, estate planning. Get in touch with Lance Beal. 337-991-6263 is the direct line to him. 337-991-6263 is how you get in touch with him, and online, lawofficeoflancebeal.com, lawofficeoflancebeal.com. We appreciate him for every Sunday night. Please make sure and like this post before we get out of here. Like, share, comment, however you want to interact with us. That gives us a lot of help here on our broadcast on the Jordy Culotta Show. Make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube page. If you are not, make sure and hit that subscription button and hit the bell before we get out of here. Thank you for spending some time with us here on this Sunday evening, this Daylight Savings Sunday, which has been very long.
Yeah, it feels too long.
Very long.
I like it the other way.
Me too.
Whenever I was in high school, I preferred this method.
Yes.
But now I woke up at like 7 a.m. and I was like, what are we doing here? Not even close to football at all.
Yes.
And then I stayed up, and then I fell back asleep, and it's a disaster.
A lot of adulting in the fallback of the. I mean, the days are so long, bro.
I don't like
it. Too long. I'm over it too.
It's weird because the days are longer, but it's actually the nights are longer, right? Because the
Yeah,
sun is
because you
up
goes down at 5:30.
fewer hours,
Yeah.
but somehow the day is longer. Who did this?
I don't know who did this. What is the origin of time change?
Or time, or like time zones. Like, who got to make all of these rules?
Itself.
Yeah, like
Easy on that one, bro.
Deep.
I'll get into it. I'll think about it a
Easy.
lot tonight.
That's that Cali.
Oh, think
That's
about it
that
tonight.
Colorado chronic. All right, have a good Sunday night. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. on the Jordy Culotta Show. Like, share, comment.
Full breakdown on time change Monday, tomorrow.